It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
Bear inside the 5. Bear into the end zone. It's a touchdown.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Rob Wright the third just won it for BYU.
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Nate Slack, on your legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Cougar fans, and welcome on into Cougar Sports Saturday. On this beautiful August 15th, Mitch, it was a bit of a rainy week. Were you able to stay dry? No house flooding or anything like that?
Yes, I do like a good summer rain. I don't like the summer Florida rain, but here in Utah, it's a pleasant, welcome addition. I always like a good, rainy night, but today, pretty good weather outside here in Broadcast House at downtown Salt Lake City. But it was a nice change of pace, a little bit cooler temps this week. Even yesterday morning, my oldest son, he went off to 7th grade first day, kind of like when rookies report to training camp in the NFL. 7th graders reported to junior high on a Friday to get one day early before the vets report to junior high. And in the morning, I'm there at school and dropping him off, and I'm like, oh, it's a little bit chilly. Obviously, he wanted me nowhere near him because he's a 7th grader, and he's just like, Dad, this is what kindergartners do, drop it off. Like, I'm just realizing, I'm getting old and you're getting older. But yes, it's been a nice week, and it's been also an interesting week. The temperature has been kind of different around BYU athletics, and that's where we start things off in the Cougar Pulse.
The biggest story that gets to the heart of BYU fans. It's the Cougar Pulse.
Since last week, when we were last on the air on Saturday, there's been a lot of rumor, a lot of talking. Last Saturday night, hours after we wrapped up our show, BYU Associate Athletic Director John McBride went to Cougar Board, popular BYU fan message board, on the heels of many Cougar fans going on social media, message boards, having rumors about the job status of Brian Santiago, the athletic director. Was he going to get fired? They were wondering if he's going to get fired. The exact post or point of reference, that is still kind of unsure on that, but it was picking up steam to the point where an associate AD went to Cougar Board and said, hey, Brian Santiago's still the AD. I was with him at this women's soccer game. Let's get ready for the upcoming season. Go Cougs. And I think he maybe walked away from that post thinking that was going to cure all the issues. In fact, felt like that added oxygen to the whole story. And it's led now to people wondering about the relationship of Kalani Sitake and Brian Santiago, to the point that Kalani addressed it this week at BYU Picture Day on Wednesday. And this was Kalani on his relationship with BYU's AD, Brian Santiago.
Guys, I'm easy to, how's my relationship with everybody? I'm easy to get along with, as long as you just take care of our football team and take care of the boys. The focus has got to be on the players. So the focus shouldn't be on my relationship with anybody other than my relationship with these players and being their leader. And the great thing is we have amazing leadership on the team, so I don't have to do much. I mean, they make my job a lot easier. I just got to make sure we can avoid all the distractions, so that's my job. I'm trying to make sure these guys get all the attention, because the attention needs to be on them going into the season, So I've made comments and talked about things in the past. But once the season starts, I'm all about the boys and all about what the fans expect. And so we're trying to meet all our fans' expectations, and that's what I'm working on right now.
Nate, your reaction to this wild week of speculation around BYU athletics?
Yeah, that statement alone by Kalani, it feels so loaded. First of all, the distraction piece, him saying, I don't want to be a distraction. Can we work on better time frames with this guy? Because he's got the Penn State negotiations happening the week of the Big 12 championship. He's got this going on just before the season starts. So there's obviously something going on. And then when he doesn't flat out say, oh, me and Brian have a great relationship, because that's easy just to throw out there and just be done and move on from it. But saying, "Oh, guys, I'm easy to get along with. You know who I am. Like I get along with everybody." So it kind of dodges the question. I just there's something going on, and I don't feel like it's really going to end, because I think fans are going to talk about this forever, right? I mean, it feels like we're at the point of the offseason now where you're just kind of scratching for anything, and so this has been a bigger news story than I think would have been had it maybe not gone to Cougar board, had it maybe been earlier in the offseason. But at this point, with Brian Santiago being a brand new athletic director, it was already kind of a questionable hire from some people, because some people just don't like him, and it was already a little bit of an uphill battle for him. I just feel like this has made things even worse and more difficult, and I'm not sure how you fix it from here without one of the two being gone from the situation.
It's a tough deal, and amidst all this, with all this speculation and conversation, BYU hired a deputy athletic director from Kentucky in Mark Hill, and we'll get to more on him. But that added another layer to all of this that, on the surface, made Cougar fans feel like maybe there's something here. And I asked Kalani directly if Mark Hill would be kind of the individual that he reports to in the athletic department. He kind of had a non-answer and said, not sure. The administration hasn't decided yet. Mark Hill has a football background from as a player, but also his long-standing time at Kentucky, where he worked for the Big Blue Nation for more than almost 3 decades. So, we'll get more to him on that, but I think you're right. This Kalani Sitake, Brian Santiago stuff will always be kind of in the backdrop now. And I do think that it's not uncommon for coaches and athletic departments to maybe have some points of contention, because I think both of these individuals want to see BYU win at a very high level. There's high expectations from all involved. I think that it is a strange deal to see this all coming to a head again, because you thought that back in December this was all put behind them. And look, there's in that moment, when Penn State was calling, it looked like Jay Hill was probably going to be the next head coach, and BYU was maybe ready to move on from Kalani Sitake, and Kalani was going to go to Penn State, which would have been a terrible pill to swallow, because, again, I think even though Kalani at times I think has been taken for granted as the head coach at BYU, I think he's shown that he is the right man for BYU. His ability to retain a roster, his ability to develop a culture within a transactional era of college football, and the man just truly loves BYU football to the core. Even on day one of fall camp, he made a reference again, as he did on day one of his tenure as BYU's head coach. He grew up a fan. He loves BYU football. This is his love. So, to think of him anywhere else potentially, there's got to be things have got to get cleared up, because the last thing you want is for Kalani Sitake to entertain the coaching carousel again. Because honestly, Nate, I feel like this is building up to where he might be on the market again. And that just blows me away, because I thought what happened in December put that all to rest. Even he said as much. He's like, I'm here to stay now. Like, this is now done. And where, and again, a little bit of that is reading between the lines and speculation. So hopefully everything can get cleared up. Everything can move forward, and everyone can get on the same page, because ultimately everyone wants BYU to win at a high level. But I just think there's got to be some clearances or some things cleared up. And I think what's unfortunate for the fans, and that's what I think made the whole athletic department statement on Cougar board, which I've been on Cougar board. I've seen it for many years, for a quarter century. Back in the days when it was BYU board, I remember the days of Bernard. Look, I just know you, Cougar fans. I know you. And I've never seen a BYU administrator go to Cougar board for anything. They almost act like it doesn't exist, but everyone we know is looking at it. And just to see that statement, it was bizarre. And hopefully whatever's going on in that athletic department can get cleared up, and maybe Mark Hill can be a stabilizing force too.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point what you bring up, because it's not uncommon for people to have disagreements in the workplace. And
no.
I mean, I've had bosses I didn't see eye to eye with, and you just kind of make it work and you go along and you do your own thing. I think what's different in this situation too is you're working with sports. So you have a bunch of people who are really competitive, and I think they have different paths to the same ultimate goal. But what hurts BYU in this situation, I think, is just BYU in general is not a very transparent organization. It's not a very transparent program because they don't have to be. They're a private institution, so they keep a lot of the things under wraps. But that leads to people wanting information, and they start to use their imaginations and fill in some blanks. And so I think that's where things start to get kind of steamrolling and getting out of control. But overall, Look, I don't think this is as big of a deal as people are making it out to be, because I think it's common for this kind of thing to happen. And I think Brian Santiago and Kalani Sitake are smart enough to understand what's going on. I think it'll be able to be worked out, but it's just the distraction that concerns me.
And I think also, too, you see what's happening with BYU football. They are knocking on the door of the playoff with solid resources, and I think that should be acknowledged. BYU football has improved its resources significantly from where they started in the Big 12 to where they're at now. And it's at a solid place. But I think that Kalani Sitake staking his career on BYU, staying here long term, he wants to build this into a powerhouse. He wants this to become a national power. And within your own conference, you've got someone in Texas Tech that, whether they're the villain or not, and you hate them for what they were dealing with Sorsby, they're not slowing down. And Cody Campbell is going to turn Texas Tech into a behemoth, and they're not slowing down with high school recruiting. No high school recruit is suddenly saying, oh, that Sorsby stuff really turned us away from wanting to get a massive payday. And they're getting 5-star recruits, not only from Texas, but the Midwest as well. Like, Texas Tech is building a really good operation. And I think not only Texas Tech, but Kalani saw firsthand what Penn State was doing. He's been linked to the coaching carousel for many years. He's seen bits and pieces throughout this process. He wants BYU to maybe not get to that, because BYU is never going to be the highest bidder on anything, but to just be like, imagine what they do if they go all in on a roster. Imagine if BYU had, say, a $40 million roster. Now, you can question whether that's worth it or not, but imagine if they did. I feel very confident this is not a $40 million roster. If they were, I would say confidently this coaching staff, paired up with a $40 million roster and the culture in that locker room, they're getting the playoff. But without a $40 million roster, maybe you have some questions about the depth at quarterback. You have some questions about the depth at running back, the wide receiver room, and so on. So maybe those could have been alleviated with a $40 million roster. And I think, again, money is an issue. That's where a lot of this comes from with some of the speculation and drama. But I think ultimately all things can work out. And I will say, too, as we get to a break, I didn't get the sense from players that they were even aware of these rumors and speculation. Yeah. I don't think they're on their phones. Don't get it twisted, but I don't think they're going on Cougar board much. I think that's kind of a different world that really doesn't cross their paths, their algorithms very often, if at all. Let's take a break. Let's get to more of BYU's deputy AD hire, and then coming up, reaction to Fall Camp Scrimmage, number 1, taking place at LaVell Edwards Stadium right now. We'll hit on that a little bit later here on the show. Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday here on KSL News Radio, your legacy home of the Cougars. 3 weeks from today, Nate, BYU football is back. 21 days.
Cannot wait.
How you feeling? Are you ready? Are you?
I'm ready, Mitch. I've been ready since January 1st.
Well, I know Cougar Nation is ready. We'll get to that a little bit later. The Cougar Club Mug Cup drama. We were both down there and saw that firsthand. We will hit on that a little bit later in the show. But we talked about it earlier. BYU Athletics hired a deputy athletic director, Mark Hill, from Kentucky. And again, the timing of this was just unique, I think. Again, I don't think it's out of bounds completely to hire someone new in the athletic department before games and school starts for the fall semester. So I think from a timing perspective, it could make sense if there wasn't this backdrop of Kalani and Santiago this. But it did just add another layer to all the speculation going on behind the scenes. But your thoughts on BYU bringing in someone from the outside in Mark Hill, deputy athletic director. Basically what that is the number 2 person in the athletic department. Your thoughts on Mark Hill hiring?
Yeah, I love it, Mitch. I love it, one, because it's an outside hire, and I feel like it's good to promote from inside at times, but you also want to be able to bring new ideas in from other schools. So the fact he's been at Kentucky for 27 years in the SEC, battling with Alabama, with Georgia, Texas A&M, I think that's invaluable for BYU to have inside the athletic department. But I think it's good, too, not just football. I mean, he's got a very athletic family, right? His daughter, Brooke, is a friend of mine. She played softball at BYU. She married Clark Barrington. His wife is one of the biggest softball analysts that ESPN has. So it's a very sport-oriented family. I think that's going to be really valuable for BYU athletics. But I love the idea that he's coming from the SEC, coming from Kentucky, a pretty notable program. Maybe not as much in football, but he still was in those same meetings with basketball. I think it's a great hire. I'm curious to see what he does. I don't think we'll ever really find out because even like the athletic director at BYU, we don't really know what his day-to-day looks like.
Yeah, it's such a good point because the ADs sometimes, there's so much talking points about ADs sometimes, especially when they're maybe, for whatever reason, not liked, by fan base. And I'm not saying that's to the point where we're Santiago yet, but as we discussed in the opening segment, some people expressed concerns about Santiago before he was hired. And I think, honestly, to this point, it's been okay with Santiago. I like the Notre Dame hire. I liked ultimately keeping Kalani on board, even though it was kind of messy to get there. Kalani's still the head coach at BYU, and for that, I'm very happy about. But, I think, so, what does an AD do? Because I think it becomes even a little bit more foggy at BYU because you got a school president. You've also got an advancement vice president in Keith Vorkink, who's been on this show. Good guy, but that's another layer that most schools don't have. And then you've also got, these additional associate ADs. There's just kind of a lot of red tape sometimes at BYU, it would seem. And I think, though, this is an important moment, though, for BYU to kind of lay out the transparency with Mark Hill and what his role is because, again, it'll create speculation of, well, Mark Hill's handling football, Santiago's dealing with basketball, there's a divide. They got to get everything on the same page, and the messaging's got to be, I think, on the same page. But I do like the fact that he is a football guy. I think there's value to that, and maybe that can help make Kalani Sitake happy. Let's take a break. More BYU football talk next here on Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
Bear inside the 5. Bear into the end zone. It's a touchdown.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Rob Wright the third. Just won it for BYU.
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Nate Slack, on your legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday here on KSL News Radio. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, or excuse me, the top of the hour, 1 o'clock, we're going to be joined by a BYU football player as the Cougars are wrapping up scrimmage number 1 inside Lavelle Edwards Stadium. I will say, fall camp, week number 2, winding down. We'll anxiously wait for our report from Trayson Bourque. I'm kidding, but partially not because, Trayson's the only man that gets us on the record reports. We can always ask people behind the scenes, but we're not allowed to go. I miss those days of going to a scrimmage. I think all of Cougar Nation misses those times of checking out a scrimmage inside the stadium.
Yeah, I've never understood why they stopped. I don't think there's any advantage to Utah Tech if they were to have open scrimmages, but whatever. I guess that's where we're at.
Well, I think too. It's also hey, spoiler alert, LJ is going to be probably a big focal point. Yeah. I don't think I'm spilling the game plan.
Well, especially when they're these schools want all this revenue to be coming in. Charge $10 to have people go check out a scrimmage, and then the people who can't afford to go to a game can go to a scrimmage and still see the football team and feel connected. I
think it's a great point. I think it was. I actually saw this with Ohio State. Ohio State had their training camp sponsored, and I think they had it sponsored, and there was fans there. It kind of looked like an NFL practice, and I thought to myself, it kind of hit me when I saw that. I'm like, why does BYU and really any other college program not do this? maybe you don't have to do every practice, because all these practices and snaps are valuable, and I get that, but do 5 practices in fall camp, monetize it. I mean, I don't know what Cougar fans would honestly pay, but I'm sure there's a good portion of Cougar Nation that would, if there were like VIP opportunities to maybe meet the team afterwards, I'm sure you could monetize that and make some cash. And like this scrimmage today, if you paid a premium and, I don't know what it would be, but there's ways to monetize it, because ultimately I think a lot of people, there's some exceptions with fans, but I don't think everyone knows all the minutia, all the route trees, all these different things that have been ran when they're watching a practice. They just want to see guys. They want to see bodies. They want to see how players look, because, again, I think one of the fun things about being a fan is that, you get to form your own opinions. Like, yes, you can listen to us, and we appreciate all of you for listening to us, and we'll have some practice observations from Monday, which there were some really good insights on Monday, but ultimately, like, I think the fans want to, be able to form their own opinions of someone. I think that's always one of the fun things. I always enjoyed that growing up as a kid and as a teenager, seeing the team and a practice and a scrimmage to really form their own opinions. And look, they get, all this commentary about revenue and generating this money and this and that. Like, let's find ways to monetize this. Why not? Because I really think that, when you get around these coaches and players, they like, I think there's something that excites them about performing in front of people, and especially for the, third and fourth string guys, if they get a snap or two, like, hey, they get a chance under the lights or in front of people to really go do it big. I hope they have an open practice inside the stadium this year as they did last season. What was that, 24 hours notice, and they had 4,000 people, 5,000 people? Like, it was a great turnout. Like, there's an audience to this. BYU fans are clamoring for football right now.
Yeah, and I just, you want to keep everybody involved as well, because looking at the ticket prices, like, you can get a lot of people they get priced out, right? Mm-hmm. This Utah Tech game, BYU is I think it opened up as like BYU is a 47-point favorite against Utah Tech, and tickets are starting at $88. So $88 for one ticket. If you have a family of 6, that cost is going to go up really fast. So it's a good way to be able to invite people to go to the stadium, check it out. We were there yesterday when they were trying to drop that Cougar Club Cup, and there was probably another 1,000 fans there willing to be in line for 45 minutes, and we'll talk about that later. But there's obviously demand for people to support BYU football. I think this would be an easy way to do it. I got a question for you, Mitch. We got a text from Texter 1631 talking about Kalani and the I guess drama right now with Brian Santiago. They say Kalani does well with this team when it becomes us against the world. This distraction could lend itself to that. Do you buy into that at all? Do you think this could be a they don't believe in us, even like from an internal, the athletic department doesn't think can reach the heights we believe we can?
I think it could. I think it's definitely possible, and I do think that even without that element, that it is a feeling of us against the world if you're BYU in that locker room, because, I don't think anyone still believes in BYU. I don't think anyone believes in the Big 12. No. I don't think anyone takes any BYU or Texas Tech as serious national title contenders. Because, again, you just say it out loud. Returning quarterback, best player offensively in a Power 4 league, take away logos, take away names. Just say those things out loud. A lot of returning experience on the offensive line. The number 1 transfer linebacker in the portal cycle. Just, again, stack these things up. One of the best cornerbacks in college football. 23 wins over the last 2 years. That screams to me top 8 team. Like, one of the best teams in the country, like national title contender, saying those things out loud. But yet, no one looks at BYU and takes them serious, because they say, they're probably about 15, 16, somewhere in there, and they're a team that, won't be taken serious as a real threat. They just live on the edge of their seat, and they can't get it done. So I think they can already play that card. But then maybe this element of, we saw it in 2019 when Kalani's job was clearly up against the wall in that season. I remember players were like, we're doing everything we can for Kalani because we know his job's on the line. When it was 2-4 and they're going into that game against Boise State, it looked like this might be the end of the road. Like, that looked like a moment where Kalani's going to get fired. And the players, they balled out for Kalani, and he ultimately got the extension. And 7 years later, he's still there. and he's now viewed as maybe the best coach in the Big 12. He's definitely the longest tenured coach, but one of the best coaches in college football too. So it's crazy how things can turn, and I think that this locker room will always be committed to Kalani Sitake. Heck, I mean, I even saw on Instagram Ephraim Asiata, who is not on the roster, and he dealt with his DUI in July. He posted a couple days ago on Instagram. You could easily look at him and say dude's going to have an axe to grind with BYU and Kalani. He posted a picture about Kalani, unconditional love. Love that man. Like, Kalani's just a loved person, and I think so when it's an us against the world mentality, if they get a wind of any of this drama, these players will, I mean, they always run through a wall for the guy. I think they'll do it even more so.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm hoping they can have that same mindset this year. Some of my concerns going into the season initially before all this stuff unfolded is BYU still going to have that drive? Because it has always been kind of like Kalani is flirting with Penn State. He's up in the air about an extension in 2019, and they would respond with big seasons. I think BYU is in a good spot, though, because the last 2 years were so close to making the playoff, and I feel like they were disrespected, that they understand now they can't leave any shadow of doubt. They have no margin of error at all, being a member of the Big 12 Conference. It's also frustrating me to see these teams, or to see these national pundits starting to create their little preseason playoff brackets, and they'll just kind of throw in, there's this G5 school is going to be here. We'll pick one school from the Big 12. Like, the Big 12 already is going to be a one big league, Mitch. Unless BYU and Texas Tech or Utah or somebody is, if there's two undefeated teams in the Big 12 championship, I think they get two in. Other than that, like, you can't lose one game in the regular season like BYU did last year, and they're still on the outside looking in. So I feel like there's still a lot of things for BYU to take kind of a chip on their shoulder approach. It doesn't have to be the quote-unquote distraction that Kalani and Brian Santiago have been recently. I think there's enough things in the program where they understand that they're kind of the underdog. You bring in guys like Roger Saliaponga from Oregon, who is kind of, yes, he's a big transfer from Oregon. Same thing with Kyler Casper, but they played pretty sparingly. So I feel like they want to prove themselves. Walker Lyons played a little bit for USC, but not a ton. I feel like he's kind of in the same boat. So I feel like there's a lot of guys who are just really eager to show what they can. They kind of embrace that culture that BYU has of doing that same thing where nobody believes in us. We've always kind of been stacked up against it. I think they're still going to get a favorable ranking in the preseason, which will help quite a bit. But it's difficult to overcome the perception that people have against BYU.
Let's hit on that preseason ranking talk coming up. We already have the coaches poll out. Coming up on Monday, probably the most visible preseason poll releases on Monday. That's the AP Top 25. Let's hit on that next and make our predictions as to where we think BYU will land coming up next. Welcome back to Cougar Sports Saturday here on KSL News Radio, your legacy home of the BYU Cougars. Mitch Harper and Nate Slack with you. Coming up at the top of the hour, we'll be joined by a BYU football player as the Cougars wrap up Fall Camp Scrimmage number 1. Fall scrimmages are always mixed feelings because you like it because it's a sign of football being close, but then you're just like, please stay healthy at all costs, please. We don't need some Micah Harper situation. We don't need a Russell Tialavea, Ben Archibald situation of the past. If you know, you know. Those have been like gut-wrenching ones. Like I've always been tempted to bring that up with K-pop and say, like, you know, I was hoping to have him on and just say, like, hey, how's the health of the team coming out of the scrimmage? Because I just remember that 07 season with Russell Tialavea. It was just like, oh, that just gut checked. I think I remember watching that. Anyway, coming up on Monday, after today and then Sunday, get a little bit of a break. Monday, be week 3 of fall camp, but it'll also be the release of the AP Top 25. And Nate, I know you love this poll. You love this poll so much. You're putting these pollsters on blast. Every Sunday morning, my feed is just filled with Nate just taking to task these pollsters. What are your expectations for Monday when the AP Top 25 drops for BYU?
I think BYU is probably going to be in the 15 range. I think it's a little low. They should be a lot higher. There's only 2 voters that have their votes out publicly right now. That is Chris Murray from Nevada, who he's actually the only, I don't think I've told you this, Mitch, he's the only AP voter who has me blocked on X. So anytime I share his poll, I've got to go to his outlet because I can't share his posts. So he has BYU at 13, and then Brett McMurphy also has BYU at 13. Those guys typically have BYU. I'm looking at there's an app called, or a website called College Poll Tracker, where you can kind of track where everybody has BYU at. So Brett McMurphy last year to end the season had BYU at 12, and Chris Murray had BYU at 10. So there's people who, like Bob Balu and Kirk Bowles, had BYU at 14 last year to end the season. You'll have people who just don't believe in BYU, so that I think that's going to bring down the number a bit. You'll probably have a few top 10 votes, I imagine, but I'm expecting BYU to be around that 10 mark.
On the note of that pollster 15. Blocking you, that is so soft on so many levels. Just like, if you can't handle the heat, just get out of the AP poll business. There's many people that would love the poll. Like, just own your pick.
I'm not taking shots or anything either. I'm just saying, like, BYU moved up from 13 to 12, and then what happens, though, is then people start to pile on to my tweet, my post, and then they're like, hey, you're not even watching BYU play. And then they start to think it's me. And
there's nothing personal in any of that. Now, if you're calling out the man and, like, his personal life, sure, okay, that's maybe grounds for blocking. But it's like,
you're a voter.
You're blocking over your ballot, which stinks. Then, just face the music and own up to it and interact and debate and explain your reasoning. Don't just run away and block. The last time BYU was in the preseason poll was 2022. They were number 25, and that season wasn't great. BYU was an 8-win team that year, but it was nosediving until that win at Boise State that year. The defense bottomed out, so that was a bit of a tough season. Before that, it was 2009, number 20. The last time BYU was in the top 15 of the preseason poll, Nate, do you know?
I'm going to guess 1985.
That's correct. 1985, they were number 10 entering that season. Think about that for a second. Reigning national champions, bring back the starting quarterback in Robbie Bosco, and still 10. Couldn't put him above 10. Couldn't put it, just can't put them in the top 5, even when they were the number 1 team the year prior in the format that it was back in 84. 10 in the preseason poll. And remember, they went on to beat the Washington that year, that was the heated debate, BYU and Washington. They beat Washington in that season. They finished number 16 that year in 1985. So it's not common for BYU to be highly ranked. I'm with you. I think they're going to be in that 15. I could see them being as low as 16, but personally, I feel like if I had a ballot, I'd put BYU at 9. That's where I'd put them. 9. I would. And people would look at it and say, oh, that's homer alert. But really, I look at the top end of college football right now. Again, we just experienced a sport where Indiana won it all, and they started last season in the 20s. Like, why can't that happen again? Yes, the investment in the rosters is continuing to climb for these teams. It's funny, we think the year when Ohio State won was a $20 million roster. We thought, oh my gosh, the sport's going to lose its soul. And now there's 20 feels like the floor. Like, now you got to have $40, $50 million rosters to feel like you could potentially get into the playoff hunt. But we will see that AP poll release coming up on Monday, and will you be going in on these AP pollsters once again?
Absolutely. Follow me at NateSlack5. Stay tuned.
Our own Josh Furlong with KSL Sports, he's got a ballot. And, Josh, he takes a lot of heat because he's covered the Utes, and Cougar fans sometimes give him heat. But I think he's pretty balanced, pretty fair. Like, he doesn't have too many egregious picks, if at all, when it comes to, like, out-of-the-box things. And I'm okay in the preseason when pollsters just say, you know what, I'm laying claim to this team is going to be a top 10 team. Like, just own it. It gives some reasoning and explanation as to why that's your pick, but I'm okay with it. And I'm okay with people having BYU rated low. If they don't think BYU is going to be that good, fine. Like, own it. I just like to hear the reasoning because, again, conventional college football talking points would suggest BYU's got a makeup and background that would say that probably should be a top 10 team. But again, there's this unspoken ceiling of where Big 12 teams go. And that's another piece that I'm really interested in, Nate, on Monday. Where will Texas Tech be? I feel like they should be another top 10 team, but I don't think they will be. I think they'll be around 12.
That's what I think, too. I think 12. And I think that's about where the other two voters had them at, was 11 or 12. But I think one thing that's really hurting Texas Tech is just the whole drama surrounding their quarterback. If they had gone into the offseason believing in Will Hammond, which I think they probably should have done, I think that would have changed their start to the rankings, because Will Hammond's going to be a really good quarterback for Texas Tech. So I know Brennan Sorsby's no longer on the team. I really don't think that hurts Texas Tech at all. Oh, we're about 30 seconds away, I believe, from Reggie Frisch next, so we'll just hang tight for just a little bit. Mitch, what expectations do you have for BYU's receiver core going into this season?
Yeah, I think that this, as we look at the BYU wide receivers, and because they just wrapped up the fall camp scrimmage number 1, media's going to hear from the coaches, and we'll hear from wide receiver Reggie Frischneck coming up. I think the wide receivers, someone's got to emerge. I want to see some proven, some consistency from that group. Right now, I don't think there's any consistency that's proven at the college level. Do they have the ability? Do they have the potential? 100%. I think you can talk yourself into some of these guys emerging and becoming big-time players, potentially, but it's all potential-based right now. And look, and I've always pointed to this, too. BYU fans, this BYU coaching staff, they have seen really good players at the wide receiver position. Puka Nacua, Chase Roberts, you can go on and on. This program under Kalani Sitake has seen that. This wide receiver crew has the opportunity to do that. We're joined now live here on KSL News Radio. Mitch Harper and Nate Slack on Cougar Sports Saturday with BYU wide receiver Reggie Frischneck, who's looking to have an impact on this BYU wide receiver unit this year. Reggie, got some intel that you had a pretty good scrimmage today. Is that what can you summarize from today's scrimmage?
Yeah, I did. So I caught 2 touchdowns. First one, just a post over the middle. Second one, kind of like a fake block and kind of like screen, but like threw it to me. So it was a good scrimmage though. All around, whole team, good scrimmage. Offensively, defensively, got better. So
on those 2 touchdown passes, who threw the rock to you on those 2 touchdown passes?
It was Bear on both of them.
So from that, with the first team offense, then I take it those first team snaps.
Yeah, definitely rotating in. Every drive we rotate who's in and who's playing with the first team. So I'm excited for it. When it gets closer to game day, we'll know more about who actually is that one group, if that makes sense.
I think a lot of fans are excited for that same thing. And I'm curious, Reggie, where do you feel you've made the most growth from last year? So it was kind of a crazy deal going into BYU because you'd been at Snow College and then Weber. But where do you feel you've made the most growth from last year?
Definitely just my overall knowledge of like defenses and how to read the defense, and also just like my route running. I say when I came into BYU, I was pretty raw, just more like an athletic big kid. But I feel like I polished up. I was working in the off season with an old player, Neil Powell, and just my own work on the field. And I feel like that is probably the biggest places where I've gotten better from last season. So
what do you feel like is your biggest strength as a receiver?
I'd say just I'm a fast learner. I'd say that's my biggest strength. And then also just like toughness. I'm strong and I'm physical. So even if DBs try to press me, I can get around, strong with my hands, good at blocking, crack blocking, stuff like that. So I'd say just strength overall, probably.
Talk with BYU wide receiver Reggie Frischneck live here on KSL News Radio as BYU football wrapped up scrimmage number 1 here in fall camp. And Reggie, is going into this season, there's been so much outside talk about the wide receiver position, what to expect. What is passing game coordinator Fesi Sitake laid out as expectations for this wide receiver room during camp and things that you guys are trying to strive for?
Yeah, definitely a lot of outside noise, a lot of uncertainty coming from the outside. The biggest thing that Fesi has said to us is every single year there's someone who has to step up, in the past. And he just says this year there's more people to step up. But he told us to be confident in ourselves and to come in with the mentality that we're good enough. We're good enough to start, good enough to perform, good enough to keep up with anyone in the country. And I think that was his biggest emphasis, is just be confident in who we are and what we have,
Where do you feel like you've improved the most from from last year to this year? I mean, last year there was a little bit of transition coming from the JC rank, and also Weber State too was quick turnaround as a post-spring guy, having a full winter conditioning, spring ball, now fall camp. How much has that just helped maybe the confidence for you and the potential of you creating an impact in this BYU offense in 2026?
Yeah, having all that time here at BYU, last season I was strictly from Weber, like really fast turnaround, new offense and everything. I think the biggest thing is I'm now really comfortable where I am. I learned the offense like through and through. I know different ways to read defenses, like how the play will change according to defenses. And I think that's the biggest thing, just being secure in what I know and secure in the offense so that I can play fast and ready whenever.
Reggie, I've always found this interesting, but what's the vibe like in the receiver room when you have so many guys who are competing for playing time, but you're also building those friendships and relationships? Is that something kind of difficult to navigate? Is the competition between playing time and being able to create relationships off the field?
No, it's actually crazy. Everywhere else I've been, this place, especially like this year, everyone is rooting for each other. It doesn't matter if you're fighting for a starting spot. Like, we all want to see each other succeed, and it's been amazing because we all give it our all, but we all cheer for each other and we're there for each other. So it's great. We have great relationships in and out. Everyone knows everyone. We're really close. It's a fun, tight-knit group.
Last thing for you, Reggie, what did the staff do to kind of simulate maybe a game day atmosphere inside the stadium today? Did you guys go in the new look locker room? Like, just maybe take us through how this was the approach of getting back into LDS, competing, and how much of it was trying to simulate a game day environment.
Yeah, they did a ton. So we first just drove from the stadium here, got in the new locker room, changed, all that stuff. And then we went out, we did some special teams periods. And then right after our special teams periods, we started exactly like a game. So receivers did their pregame warm-up with the tight ends, little route running. And then we got straight in. We didn't kick off or anything, but we got straight into our, we call drive it period, where it's like live tackling. And then the ones drove, the twos drove, threes drove. And then we did some scenarios like 2-minute, backed up, and red zone. So everything was like a game. We had refs there, flags, everything. So it was exactly like a game, except they tried to protect some people, obviously, like no hitting quarterbacks and stuff like that. But other than that, it was pretty much spot on of a game, and it was good to get in with new guys and have fun. So.
Well, 3 weeks from today will be the real deal, and that will be a lot more fun having an actual live game. Congrats on the success today in that scrimmage, Reggie, and looking forward to more of that this season from you for this BYU football offense. Thanks for hopping on today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, guys.
That's Reggie Frischneck live here on KSL News Radio, Cougar Sports Saturday. Let's take a break. Let's recap more from the fall camp scrimmage number 1 here on KSL News Radio.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
Bear inside the 5. Bear into the end zone. It's a touchdown.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Rob Wright the third just won it for BYU.
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Nate Slack, on your legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday here on KSL News Radio. BYU football just wrapped up its fall camp scrimmage. 102 total plays for the Cougars in the scrimmage, and the 2s and 3s went live the entire time. Right now, though, we'll play an interview I had earlier this week with assistant quarterback coach Tyler Hughes. And I caught up with Coach Hughes talking about the quarterbacks and also his path to BYU from the NFL to Provo.
Well, it's been great to be here. You know, I'm from Salt Lake City originally, so I grew up in the state. You know, I've kind of coached all over the place. You know, East Coast, West Coast, everywhere in between, and we've had a lot of good experiences. You know, in terms of coaching. But I always was hopeful that I could get back to the state of Utah, and I really was hopeful to get back to here at BYU at some point. And you know, you just never know. You know, you never know, like, opportunities and timing, if it all works out and comes together. And fortunately, this time around it did. And so, super excited to be here. Really enjoy working for Coach Kalani and Coach Roderick. Just the way that they are as people, this first class all the way. These players are fantastic. They work really hard. They're tough. they're accountable, and they're guys that want to be coached. I mean, they want to be directed, and they want to get better as players. And so it's just been all good. Nothing but good things to say about it. Really thankful and excited for this to kind of keep rolling through fall camp.
Any relationships with Kalani and A-Rod before you got here that maybe initiated maybe the talks of getting you here to BYU?
Well, I had coached at Snow College for a long time, and so through that time, way back when I was coaching at Snow, my last year was 2012. They were both at Utah at that point, and so anyway, we had a lot of players that would go up there, and so got to know them through that process quite a bit, and then just recently over the past few years, just whether it was my time in the NFL or at different colleges, we was cross paths in various capacities, and we never talked totally about me being here or anything like that. We just talked as I guess colleagues do, and glad that it worked out.
So you take over that assistant quarterback role, but I got to think that Aaron Roderick empowers you to really kind of lead up that quarterback room. What's maybe the dynamic in terms of leading this quarterback unit and the responsibilities that A-Rod gives you?
Well, he's great to work with. He gives me a lot of runway with the guys, which I appreciate. At the same time, his offense has been super successful over the past several years, and a lot of good quarterbacks have played for him. And so I appreciate his knowledge and his expertise, not only just with the offense, but also just football in general. And so I think we work really well together. We bounce ideas off one another, and I think that's been helpful. With the quarterbacks, like when we're in the meeting room, I'm just trying to give them as much good information as possible to help them be successful players. I mean, that's ultimately, I think, what a coach is supposed to do, is help them be successful, help the players be successful. And so I think working hand in hand with A-Rod and Bear and the guys, I mean, have really, I think, been really good about just gathering information and applying it on the field, and they're making good progress.
Who are some of your coaching influences in your career? You've been a head coach, you've worked in the NFL, as you noted, Alabama most recently. Just maybe some of the influences in your coaching career.
Well, I would say my first one, I would say my old high school coach, Coach Georgelis. I played at East High School in Salt Lake, and he was really intense, but he made football fun. He made it enjoyable to be there. I think our guys, when I was a high school player, always appreciated that, and so I kind of like his style. Like it's intense, it's serious, but you should have fun. And when I got hired in the NFL, I remember I talked to him, and that's exactly what he said. He goes, "Hey, just don't forget to have fun." He goes, "It's going to be really serious, so don't forget to have fun." So I appreciated that and what I learned from him. I worked for Coach Belichick for the New England Patriots, and Coach was so great to work for, because just his football IQ and his knowledge and how hard he pushed us to be good coaches and to be prepared and to be accountable to our players. I thought that was great. The preparation that we had there, I thought, was just second to none. And I've worked with a lot of other really great coaches. It's hard to name them all. I certainly have been thankful and blessed to have a lot of good influences in my life as coaches. And I would be remiss not to say, we're talking about coaching, but not to mention my parents, my mom and my dad. They were the ones that inspired me to want to be a coach. They gave me they kind of planted the idea and seed in my head when I was in the 8th grade, and gave me kind of like a chance to chase dreams and follow what I love, which is football. And so, if it wasn't for them, I would have, I don't know what I would have done, but I knew back then, even when I was in the 8th grade, that's all I wanted to do was coach football. And they were the two that really kind of helped, lead me in that direction.
Thanks for sharing that. That's really cool. Looking at the quarterback room that you're working with this year here at BYU, do you got a lot of guys that you feel are passionate about the game of football? It was starting with Bear Bachmeier. Just what do you see from him and the work he puts away from the field to get ready for Saturdays?
Well, we talk all the time about how critical preparation is. It's an area that should give us an edge. Everyone's going to come in, every team in the country will come into the meeting rooms, they'll come on the practice field, and they'll do all those things. And there's a lot of really, really good competitive programs out there, and everyone's doing that. So what can we do beyond that to give us an edge? And part of that then would come down to our preparation. So that's what we do individually, in our own time, right? When, we had the weekend off, and from Saturday afternoon until Monday morning, and I just said, hey, just get away from it and, enjoy time with, friends, family, and whatever you guys do. I said, but at the same time, don't get too far away from it. Watch a little bit of tape on Saturday night. Just clip through practice one more time. Just have like a good presence about you all the time about what we're doing, and so when we come back on Monday morning, it doesn't seem like you got to like rev up the engine for a while, right? And so I think Bear's really, really good at that, just staying in the moment, staying focused on what needs to be done, and all the guys in the room are the same way. They're easy to talk to about football because they put time and effort into doing it, and we can have like good conversations in the room about high-level things in football because they can manage that, they can handle that, and that's a credit to them. They love football, they work hard, and it's fun to coach them.
What do you think is Bear's strengths as a quarterback? We saw last year how good he was. Here's Trayson. Maybe talk about this guy real quick. What's Trayson meant to this room?
Well, no, he's awesome. He's a really good teammate, and he's a really good player. Like when he's out on the field, he manages the whole game really well. Knows the down and distance, the clock, his assignments, what the other guys' assignments are. He really has good vision on like what's going on out there. He's had a really good camp. He had a good spring, and he's certainly helping us every day.
What's Trayson's biggest strength? Because I think the fans are still kind of getting to learn him a little bit. I mean, obviously, want to have Bear always in those games, but what is Trayson's biggest strength on the field as maybe a passer or his intangibles?
Well, I think his from an intangible perspective, his confidence. He really believes in what himself as a player, and he believes in the other guys around him. And so, you'll see him with the guys like, running a play, and then they need to come back to the huddle, and he just has a really good presence of like bringing the guys back. Hey, we're huddling right here, and they just really like respond well to like his leadership and his command out there on the field. So I think that's a big thing that comes from having like a high level of confidence, which ultimately stems from his preparation and the way that he got himself ready to come out here for fall camp, and in the spring and in the past as well. So that's the intangible. From like a football perspective, he's accurate. He can throw all three levels: deep, intermediate, and short. He's athletic, where he can get in and out of the pocket and make accurate throws. When he's out there. And he's a good decision maker. Like he doesn't make bad decisions. He knows when he should take a chance. He knows when he shouldn't. And being a great decision maker is really critical. And he definitely does a good job that way.
Going back to Bear, when you analyze the film of him, because you weren't here last year, but what do you and Coach A-Rod are looking to maybe unlock in Bear this year in his sophomore season?
Well, I think just for him, he has three traits that I think are really important. He's accurate. And some guys, like they just have like a really good feel for like time and space on the field, and that's what Bear has. He just understands like how things all come together. And you got to play on time. Like you got to know the offense and have the knowledge in order to be able to do that too. So you combine those two things, makes him again very accurate. Then he also anticipates like what goes out on the field. He can see windows open, before the rest of us, right? And so one thing that we talk about often is throw the guy open. So in other words, like you got a receiver who's running an in cut, and there's a linebacker, kind of in front of him, and the window is just past the linebacker. Well, the quarterback that waits for him to get in that window is late, and he can't, and we're going to get an incompletion or worse. But Bear knows like I got to throw him into that window before he's available, right? And he does a really good job that way. And then like we talked about like decision making, like Bear's an excellent decision maker in the run game and the pass game, because there's plays in the run game where he has an option like an RPO, run pass option. He makes the right decision because at times quarterbacks, when they have an opportunity to throw it, they would like to throw it, but he makes the right decision for the team. This one we need to run it, this one we can throw it. This one I need to read it post snap and just make sure I have a good feel for it. And he typically is correct with his decisions. And one reason why he's that way, he's really smart, but he also cares about the team. So he makes the decision that he knows is best for the team. And, that's certainly appreciated by me, and I know everybody else.
A few more moments here. I appreciate the time, Coach. Thoughts on Enoch Watson, too, because I know that he was someone that, he's a true freshman, came back from a mission. Your impressions of him, and is he still in that mix to maybe be the QB2 with Trayson contending for that spot?
Yeah, Enoch is ascending every day. Going back to the spring, he had just gotten home off his mission, and he, like any new player to the program, any young player, there's just so much learning that has to happen. And for a quarterback, being able to like function like operationally. Here, here's the snap count, here's the motion, here's the shift, here's the check. There's so many things that they have to process internally before the ball's even snapped, and then they've got to be a fast processor once the ball's snapped as well. And so there's just a lot, it's a really, really difficult position to play. So for Enoch, I've been really pleased with the way that he has progressed, like from spring through the summer and into fall camp in terms of that overall process and understanding what needs to be done. He's a really talented player. He's got good size. He's athletic. He throws the ball well. The guys like him. Like he's just a really like smooth, comfortable leader that the guys like can get behind. So he's got a good upside in front of him, and he will just continue to get better. I mean, he hasn't taken a step back at all since he got here. I assume that ascension will just continue to keep moving forward.
Last thing, Coach, any other quarterbacks, John Sanders, or anyone getting snaps in camp, or is that still more developmental with Sanders, Geilman, and the rest of the quarterback unit?
Yeah, right now the three that we talked about are getting snaps. We'll try to get the other two, some snaps here or there before camp is up. But right now we've primarily focused on those other three.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
Bear inside the 5. Bear into the end zone. It's a touchdown.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Rob Wright the third. Just won it for BYU.
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Nate Slack, on your legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday here on KSL News Radio. BYU football wrapped up fall camp scrimmage number 1. We just heard from head coach Kalani Sitake just on the Zoom call that they just had for the media. No media observation during the scrimmage, which is unfortunate. But we did get a Zoom, a brief Zoom with some of the players and Coach Kalani Sitake. And we also caught up with Reggie Frischneck as well. Reggie Frischneck, by the way, we had him on the air. If you missed that interview, it'll be up on the podcast feed later today. 2 touchdown grabs for Reggie Frischneck.
Thrown by Bear, first team offense. And Kalani Sitake said that he would give a slight edge to the offense today and that the offense won the scrimmage today. Your knee-jerk reaction to that sort of tidbits and details from today's scrimmage? That's just what I wanted, Mitch. If I could pick for the offense or defense to have won the day, I want the offense to win because I don't have any concerns about the defense. I do have concerns about the offense. So if the offense is able to come out on top today, I like that. And you know what? Kedu Luave also pointed to that, saying that the offense probably came away with the win today. So I think that's notable for a few reasons. One is I think people have been hesitant to think about BYU's ceiling because of the offense, and which does make a lot of sense to me because I understand you're replacing a couple big receivers, well, really 3 big receivers, with Parker Kingston, Chase Roberts, and Carson Ryan. But the receiver room has never really been anything that BYU struggled with historically. And it doesn't matter which quarterback is throwing the ball. It doesn't matter what year it is. The receivers always come to play and they do well. So I'm not really concerned about the receivers, but I'm really glad to hear that they won today. And then number 2 is because I think they need that confidence boost as well. Because I think it's easy to see during the summer, it's like, okay, we got this timing down. We've got a lot of returning bodies. The offensive line's going to be really good. But to be able to do that against the defense inside the stadium during the first scrimmage, I think the confidence can take this team a long ways.
Underrated commentary, too, from Kalani Sitake in his media availability just now. When it comes to the wide receivers, he said that he liked what they saw from the wide receivers blocking downfield. And look, I think that gets often forgotten. I know sometimes even myself, I forget that following this program, but that is kind of a key piece to BYU's offense. Puka Nacua was a very underrated blocker. Same with Chase Roberts. Those guys would get after it downfield, and they would go block. And I think, look, it's kind of like feels like a little just coach speak answer, but the tendencies that we've seen from Aaron Roderick, Fesi Sitake, Kalani Sitake, you'll get opportunities as a player to perform when you're blocking as a receiver.
Yeah.
And I think they value that almost as much sometimes as a big catch, is their willingness and ability to block. And I think that's kind of a good little way to phrase things if you're Kalani about this receiver room. And I think, again, coming out of this week in week 2, as week 2 is wrapped up for fall camp now for BYU, they have a quiet confidence internally about the wide receiver unit. And as you heard from Reggie Frischnecht on this program, the messaging from Fessy has been someone will emerge. Someone is going to emerge. They have to emerge. Who's it going to be and be that top dog that you count in every single week? I think they do feel like there's multiple guys that could emerge as that. It's just tough for anyone to really stake claim to a certain guy being the one, because just the entire room has not performed at a high level in college football. Mm-hmm. There's not real production that you point to as proof of concept to say, okay, this will translate. It's all projection based. Maybe a little bit of JoJo Phillips, and that's why I think a lot of us kind of point to him being potentially wide receiver 1. But Kyler Casper, according to Kalani Sitake today, the 6'6" transfer from Oregon, he had a touchdown grab as well. You like to hear that, because Casper, as Fessy Sitake told me in day 1 of camp, they want to bring him along slowly because they understand the health injury history that he's had, but he's been full go, playing, competing, huge, tall body. I saw him on day 5 of fall camp. He was on his knees, like doing some catching. The guy, even on his knees, looked like he was about 6'2". He was like at eye level with me on his knees. He is a tall guy. So, sound like a good day for the wide receivers for BYU.
Yeah, Kalani also talked about the special teams unit, and I feel like that's something that's really gone under the wraps because they're replacing basically everybody from last year. Sam Vanderhaar is gone. Will Farron is gone. Both punt returner and kick returners from last year.
Garrison Grimes, the long snapper as well,
long snapper gone. So he did talk about the place kickers. It didn't sound like there was really any separation between Matthias Dunn and Brody Laga. He did talk about the punt returners, and it sounds like the punt returners will either be Cannon DeVries or Tiger Bachmeier. He did mention that Legend Glasker, Preston Rex, and Evan Johnson also returning punts at times.
I don't like that. Do not get Evan Johnson near that at all. When I heard that, I thought back. I don't know if you remember this. You might be. I think you watched that 2001 season, correct?
Yeah.
Remember that game against UNLV when Luke Staley out of nowhere was returning kicks, and I'm like, no, just because Luke was, he had an injury past, and you're just like, what are you doing? Do not risk Luke Staley on an injury in kick return. Anyway, that's where my mind went when I heard that tidbit. I'm like, okay, Evan Johnson is one of the best corners in the Big 12. Do not mess with
put
that.
Him back there.
And also, too, the cornerback position, I'm really high on Kevin Doe, Javen Williams, but there's a drop between Evan Johnson and Trey, the 1s, and the 2s. Yes. Javen Williams is solid. I like Javen Williams. He's had a nice camp. And Kevin Doe, sneaky, underrated player, but just...
Evan Johnson is like a draftable guy.
Maybe Kalani threw that out there in the universe to get coaches think, oh, they're going to use Evan Johnson. He's got 10-4, 100-meter speed. They got to account for that but at the same time, you're going to see Utah Tech game, and I'd like to think they're not utilizing Shmev. Look, knee-jerk reaction to that, but I was just like, do not do that under any circumstances. I don't want him taking a hit low and then causing him to miss time as the cornerback. I want him taking the hits on opposing offenses, not receiving hits. So that's my take on that. Even Legend Glasker, I'm like, I don't want that. But Cannon DeVries was
a great spit.
I honestly made the argument that Cannon DeVries, they should have considered moving him to wide receiver because he was dynamite at Weber High as a wide receiver and with some of the questions at that spot. But again, they feel really good about that wide receiver unit coming out of scrimmage number 1.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Cannon DeVries or Tiger Bachmeier. Tiger had a punt return for a touchdown when he was at Stanford, so it's not like he hasn't had that explosive returnability. So I agree with you. Keep it like that.
Do you get concerned though with Tiger as a return man after some of the struggles early on last year against Colorado? Because that punt return situation at Colorado in particular, where he didn't know where he was on the field,
he caught it inside the 5.
You just can't do that.
No, he did that on 2 different occasions too. Yeah, so I've got concerns about that, but I think part of it too is it was always going to be Parker Kingston's job to lose. When he had those muffs early on in the season, then they turned to Tiger. I feel like there's a little bit of added pressure, and so if they can go into it and say, hey, this is your job, don't worry about it, there's not anybody looking over your shoulder, maybe he makes better decisions, but that does concern me. I like Cannon DeVries. He had a couple explosive returns too, so it's not like he's a guy who can't do it, but I just don't want Evan Johnson and Legend Glasgow back there at all.
Evan is too important. He is one of the best corners in the league. He's a first-team preseason all Big 12 guy. And I really believe Evan Johnson has the potential because of the premium of stopping elite passing attacks in the NFL. Cornerback's a premium position in the NFL. And sometimes you can climb. And when you've got speed, you got the height like an Evan Johnson, I mean, maybe if things fall your way, maybe he could be a day one guy. Maybe as an NFL guy. I think he's more day two. But I think he's an NFL draft pick no matter what next year. We're talking about him in a training camp getting ready for his rookie season after getting drafted by a team. And I just think he's so critical to that cornerback position that is one area of this defense where, again, I like the budding talent potentially in that second and third unit, but it's very unproven. And it's just Trey and Shmev are so critical to this team and in that cornerback unit. But what it speaks to, though, as well, when Kalani reels off those names, they love the speed of this team.
Yeah.
And those guys have a bunch of speed, all of them. That is the common thread in all those guys.
Do you have any concerns about special teams? We haven't really talked about that, but that could be a game changer. I mean, you can flip the field. You can have game-winning kicks at the very end. That kickoff return that Keelan Marion had against Utah really flipped that game, too.
No question. I talked to Matthias Dunn, Fuller Shirts, and Ty Smith. It was kind of like a podcast. We're all chatting, one-on-three type deal at Picture Day because it is a pressing issue. I think that's one that's got to be spot on. I mean, outside of those few muffs from Kingston last year, Texas Tech, and early in the season, that special teams unit's been pretty spot on. I mean, they have been a weapon in terms of momentum and scoring points. 2 years ago, they had 5 kick return for touchdowns. They had Kingston, they had Keelan Marion, Kellen Alfrey had one against Houston. I mean, but what I'm getting at is that they were a real weapon to really change the course of a game. And then you think about the fakes, the tricks, the specials. I mean, they've been in their bag, and they've been really good. And they got to be right. You know, you want to have the peace of mind that if an offensive drive stalls against an elite team like a Notre Dame, you want to be able to have that peace of mind that within, 55 in, you can turn to the kicker and feel like he's going to make it. That's been a great luxury for BYU. And you hope that Matthias Dunn or Brody Laga could do that. I talked to Matthias Dunn. He told me he feels very confident he can kick from 60 in. And they've had a few moments in practice where they can attempt some 63-yarders. They've had that at times. But it's interesting. They've got a designated special teams coordinator now on the staff with Justin Enna. I think they understand how important that phase of the game is because special teams can sink a game. It doesn't get headlines. It's not glamorous, but it can definitely sink a team if it's not right. And BYU, I don't think it's a coincidence that they've won 23 games the last 2 years with the special teams being among the best in the nation. You could say in 2024, that was the best special teams unit in all of college football.
Yeah.
And if you want to get back to that or maintain that level, these guys got to be really good. I'm really intrigued by Laga. I think Matthias Dunn could be really good. Punter situation's kind of interesting with Fuller Shirts, and then they bring in Cole Schumann, who just got added a couple weeks ago from Pro Kick Australia. He joins the ranks. And so we'll see what happens there. Fun little tidbit, too, on the punter. Fuller Shirts, nephew to one of our KSL News Radio hosts.
Oh,
KSL
really?
Brightside, Ethan Millard.
Yeah.
It's his nephew.
Okay. How about that?
So a fun little tidbit there on Fuller Shirts. So when you're listening to Brightside, there's a BYU football connection to Ethan on the team. But, all right, let's get to a break. Let's talk Cougar Tales next. We'll get more BYU football fall camp scrimmage reaction as well in hour number 3. Cougar Tales next here on Cougar Sports Saturday. Cougar Sports Saturday on August 15th, KSL News Time, 1:53 p.m. It's time now for some Cougar Tells.
Let's get you up to speed on all the BYU news you might have missed in Cougar Tales.
It's Cougar Tales time, Mitch, and last night I was watching. Look, I'll be honest. I didn't watch the entire Jets game. I don't know if I'd ever watch an entire Jets game, but I was paying attention to Maury Bamba, who is just lighting it up. He was fantastic. He had, I believe, it was nine targets on his receivers. He had 4 pass breakups. He only allowed 3 receptions. He had a nice pass breakup in the end zone, and even got to the point where the head coach of the New York Jets, Aaron Glenn, was talking on Maury Bamba.
What can you say about Maury Bamba? Made a few plays today.
Bamba Island. Listen, he's and I said that early. I think some of the young DBs actually showed up, and he's the one that really stands out. And it's not just what he did on defense. I mean, he did some good plays on special teams too. So there's a couple mistakes that he had to, and I got to make sure I say that. But for the most part, I thought he showed out tonight.
Is he to make the Jets, Mitch?
I think he is. I mean, look, I staked my opinion when he arrived on campus. I remember watching him. It was 2021. He arrived on campus, and it was a little bit late. It was midway through fall camp. But I remember seeing him in person. I went, holy cow. He's 6'3", long arms. Like, he's body beautiful, and that's half the battle in the NFL. And then you see the speed, and now he's got a little bit of film. Like, he's got this, it's like a situation in the NFL where they like a good form of clay to work with, and then they're gonna mold it. And they're gonna like, NFL teams will be like, we can turn this guy into something because he's got the pieces that you just can't teach. We can teach certain aspects of what he needs to do in the NFL, but there's some things that you're just God-given. And I think he looked a little more physical too. Mm-hmm. But I thought he was great. I mean, I really believed when I first saw him, when we talked about it on the show, I really looked at him as like an under-the-radar NFL guy. The same could be said. I think the next in that mold is Kevin Doe on the roster this year. I think Kevin Doe could one day be an NFL guy because, again, you just can't teach that size, that athleticism, and I'm excited for Maury. I hope he sticks. I just wish he was with a different franchise. I'm still scolded by Zach Wilson's House of Horrors in New York, but hey, just find a way to stick, get in that 53-man roster, and I think these performances, that sticks. And like, week 1 of preseason is more meaningful than the third week because week 1 you're actually getting more valuable snaps and simulations of maybe game opportunities. Week 3, everyone's just like, let's just get on to the regular season. We're putting in the deep cut guys that are trying to get a roster. You flash on week 1 of preseason, that's big time for Moore. I think that's going to carry over. I think he's going to find a way to get on that 53-man roster.
I hope so. I also hope Tanner Wall makes it. He had a couple tackles yesterday for the Dolphins. He's only been with the squad for about a week, but what do you think the odds are that Tanner's able to stick on the roster?
It's tough because he already got cut by the Raiders. The timing just doesn't help his cause, but he steps in, makes a few plays. I think what helps him, let's just call it what it is, the Dolphins are absolutely horrible. They're the football version of tanking this year. They really are. Like, they are tanking for probably a number 1 pick. They could be 0-17 this year. And if they're looking to cut cost and save money, maybe it works. Maybe he shows enough and he can find a way on the roster. If I would say between him and Bamba, I would think he probably maybe is a practice squad guy. Yeah. And then he works his way up. But I think he'll bounce around the league and find ways. I just think that getting cut already, is there enough that's going to win over a team? We'll see, but I wouldn't bet against Tanner Wall, that's for sure.
Another Cougar Tells is Kalani Sitake and some staffers visited Parker Kingston's sister. She was recently diagnosed with leukemia. There's been a lot said and talked about with Parker Kingston, but it's really cool to still see Kalani treating that family well, going to visit her in the hospital. But that was a cool thing to see earlier this week.
I think that's what made that really neat.
Yeah.
Because, again, look, I'm sure there are many times where Kalani, this football program, and BYU basketball too, like things that happen within BYU athletics where coaches and people that never see the light of day, and they're doing great things in the community. But this one kind of registers a little bit more. One, because Parker Kingston's father and Trent Kingston went to X and shared the story. But again, just knowing, like, it could have been easy to just kick the Kingston family to the curb and never interact with them again and never want BYU football associated with them again. But they still, like, it's kind of like once a Cougar, always a Cougar, what they talk about. BYU's a family. Welcome to the family. That kind of showed itself. And prayers out to the Kingston family, their daughter, again, battling leukemia. And as Trent Kingston laid out on X, I mean, he put it this way. I mean, their world was turned upside down again. I mean, their daughter was diagnosed with leukemia, so she's battling. And Parker Kingston, he made his first post on X telling his sister to fight battling cancer. So our prayers go out to the Kingston family. Hopefully she can recover from this fully and just, this can be a blip on the radar. But a cool moment to see Kalani, Travis Hansen, Dave George, and Pop Satake all there supporting her as she battles her fight with cancer. Let's take a quick break. Hour number 3 coming up next, and drafting the Y right here on Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
Bear inside the 5. Bear into the end zone. It's a touchdown.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Rob Wright the third. Just won it for BYU.
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Nate Slack, on your legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday. Hour number 3 is off and underway. 2:07 in downtown Salt Lake City. And we are inching closer to football, Mitch. I was excited yesterday. I ran into you in Provo.
Yep.
We were both down there. I was just standing outside the football stadium, and my son was getting really excited. And he loves going to the games. The part he doesn't like is what I think a lot of fans really enjoy is that third quarter break. And he looks at me and he says, "No fireworks?" I was like, "No, buddy, there's no fireworks today. There's going to be in 3 weeks, but no fireworks today." But, man, it was good to be back in Provo, be around the stadium, a lot of fans in BYU attire.
By the way, when we ran into each other, I loved that we were at the BYU store.
Yeah.
Did you notice who was kind of in earshot of us when your wife was – and this is true. Your son is named Taysom.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice who was in, like, at the cash register at the time?
No.
Colby Clausen.
Oh, really?
And I think he, like, did a double take when he looked back at your wife when she's like, "Hey, Taysom, come over here." He's like,
"Oh, huh?"
Is that kid really named Taysom? It was awesome.
That's too good.
And I'm like,
No,
I
missed
didn't
him.
want to make a scene like, "Hey, Nate, look, Colby Clausen, the sports science." He's like, "Whoa, that's cool."
That's so funny. I missed him. I saw Lululemon was there giving out cupcakes. I guess I was distracted.
Good reason. I mean, Lulu's there. Like, yeah. Like, did you spin the wheel?
No, I didn't spin them all. I ate their cupcakes.
I spin the wheel, and we didn't win the big prize. They got some cool new Lulu stuff. Anyway, there's also a cool new cup that is just driving the donors crazy. Can you please explain what's going on, Nate?
Yeah, so the last few years they've had this cup where Cougar Club members can go on the day of game day, first day of the year, and show their little Cougar Club membership on their phone, and then get this cup that they can use for refillable drinks all season long. And it's completely free. You got to pay. You get the first cup for free. The other ones you had to pay $25 for in the past. This year, they send out this email to all the Cougar Club members. It says, "The Cougar Club refillable cups are back and better than ever. The dual-sided clear cup is good for free drinks at all football games this season, and $3 at every other NCAA regular season event on campus. Cups will be refilled at the BYU concessions window, yada, yada." It gives you 2 time frames to go pick these up from. One is on Tuesday from 4:30 to 7.
This past Tuesday.
Okay. And then the other date is yesterday from 11:30 to 2. So during the workday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I couldn't go on Tuesday because my son is playing T-ball, so I'm his T-ball coach. I wasn't able to make it down, so I said, "Hey, I can make it down on that Friday." And so we both go down.
Yes.
Because we have some family members who are Cougar Club members. They needed these cups. I was not expecting to see over 1,000 people in line for those cups.
Nate, I was the same way. I went down there for my dad, who's a Cougar Club member and a season ticket holder, and I thought it'd be fun to spend a day, like kind of the last summer day with my son who's going into 5th grade, and just kind of make it a day down in Provo. And I thought I was being a little bit weird getting there on time at 11:30. And when I pulled into the parking lot at 11:29 at LES, and I see the entire south end zone parking lot filled with a line, I text my dad. I said, "Dad, you're not getting a mug, buddy. Sorry." I'm not getting in that line for a mug. I'll get you a swig pregame or something. I'm not getting you that mug. Sorry, bud. It's not happening. But
it goes from bad to worse, where apparently on Tuesday they sold out. And so by the time the line was all started and everything, they were out of cups. And so they started walking around with these QR codes to basically get on a back order list. But got us thinking, we need to turn this into a segment for drafting the Y.
Mitch and Nate are drafting everything in the world of BYU sports. It's time for Drafting the Y on Cougar Sports Saturday.
Yeah, I love this. That's why we love this segment, Drafting the Y. So our topic this week, and we'll go through these quick, items that the Cougar Club should give or offer to donors on the heels of Cougar Club mug fiasco. And what broke my heart, too, is that some of the mugs were getting flipped on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, for
$100. I'm like, are we kidding here? It was like the stares of people that were walking out with that white box. It was like just envy from fans. I'm like, folks, I will personally bring you down a 12-ounce Coke Zero if needed, from the press box. Come on. Look, it is a great deal, though. Don't get it twisted. Every penny matters and dollar matters these days, but maybe we should just drink water. I know I need to do a better job of that. Full disclosure. Okay, let's get into it. Drafting the Y, items the Cougar Club should give or offer to donors. You got the first pick. Where are you going with this first?
It's nice and easy, Mitch. I'm going to go with a nice Cougar Club polo.
Okay.
Just give a nice polo. You can pick your size. I know they kind of do this already because the Cougar Club, when you get onto a new level, they'll give you an item, whether, I'm sure that some of these are going to be in our list, but they'll give you an item. But you don't get that item year after year. You have to be able to upgrade your membership to be able to get something new. So I think they ought to give just a polo every year. It's not all that much money. It's $60 a piece. Most of these Cougar Club memberships are much more than $60. I say a polo.
That's a good one. My number one pick, I really like membership services, things that you can get a tangible thing every month. I think it would be cool to get something like a box every month, where you get some little item that just reminds you, one, thank you for being a Cougar Club member. It's like a monthly box delivered. Who doesn't love a good box and opening it up, do an unboxing, make it a YouTube video, see where my mind goes. But give me a monthly box, I think would be cool with just BYU gifts.
That'd be cool. Like Christmas, you can get an ornament or whatever. I like that. My second pick, I'm going to be going with a blanket. Just get a nice BYU blanket. They have so many of those now, and I know that's one of the things that they also offer to people who are in the Cougar Club, but you have to be able to upgrade your account. So just send out a new blanket every year. You could bring that to the cold games. There's going to be some cooler games. I'm sure the Cincinnati game this year and Senior Day, that's not going to be a very warm one, I assume. So give them a blanket.
I like that. I saw the Minky Couture blankets at the BYU. Have you pulled the trigger yet and got one?
No, we've been talking about this since the golf event, where I every time I see them in the BYU store, or now they're just popping up on my Facebook feed as an ad. I can't get away from it.
My kids want that BYU blanket so bad. They always want that BYU blanket. You know what? Here's one thing that I've seen on my travels on the road, and maybe you've seen this at some of the road games you've gone to as well. They have plaques on the ground near the stadium of donors. I would love it if they offered an opportunity for fans to be able to buy a plaque near an entrance of the stadium. Maybe you do it on it'd probably be appropriate to have it on the west side, because that's where Cougar Club's kind of the core, the heart and soul on that west sideline. maybe that sidewalk, but some bricks, some blocks that could be their name and forever etched in BYU history. Like for the test of time, that block is going to be there connected to LES. You know, I think something like that would be really cool.
That's a good one. I like that. I'm going to go for my third one. I'll say signed stuff, whether that's footballs or basketballs. You have all these different athletes. You can even do drawings, but I think there's something fun about getting like a signed football or a signed football helmet, just a mini helmet. And maybe that's too hard to do because I think there's a lot of Cougar Club members, but you have so many different athletes and coaches and support staff. You could do something or at least have some kind of drawing. But I think just getting more like collectible items, memorabilia, I think that'd be a fun addition. Signed stuff.
I like that. You know, if you could, this is off topic. I'm putting you on the spot. If you had a signed item, like one BYU athlete or coach, what would it be? Who would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. So this is tough because I have so many things that are signed and good already. So I have some stuff from Ty Detmer. I have stuff from Austin Collie and Jimmer Fredette. I don't have anything from Danny Ainge.
Oh,
so I think Danny Ainge or Steve Young would be my top two.
That would be awesome.
Maybe Lavelle Edwards, because that's a little even harder to get. Obviously, he's gone. Yeah. So limited numbers out there.
I actually do have a signed ball from the 2000 team. It's kind of a cherished item when Lavelle's name is in gold and all the players are around it. It's kind of one of my prized items. I think if I had a signed item that I would love would be the quarterback factory. You remember those headshots? I think it's on floor 2 of the press box. There's a big painting mural of it. All of the QBs signing it. And I would love like a modern version too, adding to that where you kind of did like a Back to the Future almost vibe of that painting. Have the core guys, but then also add in Zach Wilson, add in Jaron Hall, Max Hall, John Beck, throw in Bear. I think that would be really cool and have all those guys sign it. That would be something that I think would be cool. Really cool. How about this? This is kind of very weird, but my mind's just kind of weird with stuff like this. But like, I like watches. I used to love back in the day bowl game watches. This is a weird little tidbit about me. When I was like 10 years old, I went to the store NPS and had a Toyota Gator Bowl watch. I don't know what teams were in that, but I thought this is college football and it's on my wrist. This is the coolest thing ever. And I had a Holiday Bowl watch once that I found at a yard sale, and I thought that is so cool. So like, give me like a cool watch that has the Cougar Club Atari logo. I think that would be awesome. That
would be cool. I'm going to go with my last one. It's a little bit different. You know when you were a kid and you would get your mom something for Valentine's Day, but it's like a little coupon book. And so you give her this thing and it's like, I will do the dishes. I will make the bed. I will vacuum the house. If you could get one little voucher per season to access any football practice.
Okay.
So you just present it at the door, say, hey, I'm redeeming my practice voucher now. I'm going to be hitting up this practice. And so you can see the entire practice. You can watch it up on the balcony of the SAB. But I think it'd be a cool thing to allow fans to go to. You can make sure that they don't have their phones out, they're not taking pictures, and just tell them, like, you can make them feel special and say, you got to keep this stuff under the wraps. You don't want it to get out there. So, but I think allowing fans to go to practice would be a cool addition.
You know what? I'd add to that too. Like, it would be cool to have. Almost like maybe it's just because of this whole summer my kid's been playing Fortnite, so maybe I'm just wired this way. XP, like have an ability to like gain like Cougar points or something. Maybe they have something like this, but the donations, but also showing up to events. They've kind of done that with The Rock.
Yeah.
But like the higher the tier, the more investment, the season tickets, the more commitment, whether that's through financial donation or even for the entry-level Cougar Club members, like, sharing a post on Instagram about the Cougar Club can get you additional rewards that then climb the ladder to get an additional, maybe better odds to get the mug or the cup that we were talking about earlier yesterday. Maybe that gives you better odds because you've really shown your commitment to Cougar Club and BYU sports in general. I think also what would be a cool opportunity, just getting like lunch with your favorite BYU head coach.
That'd be cool.
I know they do that for like maybe like the 80 circle back in the day. The Cy Kimball back in the day, that crew of donors. but maybe just something like, hey, if you want to get an opportunity to go to lunch with Kalani or go to lunch with KY or some of the Olympic coaches like Lee Kumar, I think an opportunity like that would be pretty cool because all these coaches are good people, and I think people want to, get to know them better and just get an opportunity to get that. If you wanted that opportunity, have that be maybe an opportunity for those guys. Problem is maybe Kalani's lunch schedule would be mapped out the whole year because every Cougar fan would want that, but I think that would be a fun opportunity. So that's it. Items the Cougar Club should give offer to donors. Here's the draft. Nate, your picks?
I went with Cougar Club polo, a Cougar Club blanket, some kind of signed stuff, and then like a practice voucher.
Okay, I went with a monthly box of gifts with like a monthly service because they have monthly plans. Yeah. How about a plaque for fans near the stadium that shows their donations, their commitment to BYU and the Cougar Club, a watch, and then lunch with their favorite BYU coach. So that's our picks on Drafting the Y this week. Let's take a break, and we will get to some interviews. Roger Saliapaga, BYU tight end, coming up next here on Cougar Sports Saturday. Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday. I caught up with BYU tight end Roger Saliapaga, and I asked Roger, the Oregon transfer, what he's doing to fast-track his knowledge of this BYU offense in fall camp and what they're doing to get that done. And here's what Roger had to say.
I would probably just say getting the connection down, especially with all the new guys, obviously with Bear. But probably most of the part, probably just the playbook is the biggest thing that we've been probably prone into a lot. But yeah, playbook one, but also just connection.
Has it been a difficult playbook to pick up quick? I know you were at Oregon, and I'm sure there's complexities to that one as well, but how quick have you been able to pick up the BYU's playbook?
A lot of people don't realize a lot of people run the same things, just different names. So that's been pretty easy for me. I would compare it to Oregon a little bit, similar run schemes, similar pass schemes, so it's been pretty easy.
What went into the decision to go into the portal? And I'm sure you just addressed it, but to go into the portal and leave Oregon and ultimately land here at BYU?
A lot of prayer. Never thought I would leave Oregon. I loved Oregon, loved my time there. But I felt like this is where Heavenly Father wanted me, and this is where I came.
Did you ever think you'd be at BYU when you were? Because you're in high school, I don't remember BYU much in the conversation.
Out of high school, like I said, it wasn't where I felt like Heavenly Father wanted me. But I've said in an interview before, I felt like BYU, I was always going to end up here. No matter how it happened. But like I said, I followed Heavenly Father's plan, and now I'm here. So.
And when you look at this, now that you're here, this on the field, this tight end room looks pretty good with you and Walker Lyons. How do you guys differentiate? I mean, can you just take us a little bit behind the scenes of what's maybe different between you and similarities?
I think both of us know what our similarities are, and both of us know our differences. And I think that it's pretty cool because I think Coach Gilbride does a really good job letting us know, they don't want us to do what the other person can do. I mean, we both can do some really good things, and I think just us both knowing that, Walker does some stuff better than me and I do some stuff better. I guess what I'm trying to say is just we both know playing to our strengths is probably the best we can, do with each other. Like I said, it's been fun, knowing that I have a guy right next to me in the same room. I don't have any doubt in him. So,
what's your biggest strength as a tight end?
I'll probably say the pass game. Not a lot of people know I like getting dirty in the trenches too. So,
what have been your relationship? How have you kind of fast-tracked that with Bear Bachmeier, and what's he done to be the leader of this offense?
Bear's a great quarterback, great young man. I think for us, it's just obviously in the pass game, there's a lot of things that he does that I'm not used to, and there's a lot of ways I run my routes that he's not used to. So this is what fall camp's for. This is what spring ball is for. But yeah, I think just fall camp and these next few weeks, I think that's what we're going to focus more on is just attention to detail. How can we be on the same page every play?
Along with you and Walker, there's also Noah Moeaki, Keegan Need. Any other guys in the tight end room maybe deeper that have really, but done a nice thing from your perspective as a player?
Yeah, like you mentioned, I'm gonna name the whole tight end.
Okay.
So it's Noah Moyaki, really good player. Keenan Need, really good player. Jacob Nye, really good player. Ethan Thomas, really good player. And then obviously you have Walker and Davis, who's a really good player. But I love my group. I feel like we have a really good, close, tight-knit tight end group, and it's always fun. Not a lot of people say, they have fun in meetings and stuff like that. But shout out to Coach Al, shout out to Coach Tyson, Coach Gilbride. It starts up top, and when you play for guys like that, it's fun to, everyone is excited to come to practice every day. So.
Last thing, I want to talk about your family ties to BYU. I believe Keanu. How is Keanu doing? I remember him playing at BYU as an offensive lineman. And how's he doing? Is he still in the area? Just connections to the family.
Yeah, he's doing great. He's a barber. If anyone need a cut, Una's Barber Shop. Yep. But no, he's been doing good. Like you said, he played here and he kind of knows all the ins and outs. Where to park for class, all that stuff, good stuff. But no, yeah, he's doing pretty good. He's one of my biggest role models in life. So me being in the Y, and he was in the Y, it's a good feeling. So.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
Bear inside the 5. Bear into the end zone. It's a touchdown.
Cougar Sports Saturday, a presentation of KSL Sports.
Rob Wright the third. Just won it for BYU.
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Nate Slack, on your legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday. Mitch Harper and Nate Slack with you. 3 weeks from today, BYU football is back when the Cougars take on the Utah Tech Trailblazers. All of the action can be heard right here on KSL News Radio. And we know Cougar Nation is loud and proud. You make your voices heard. It's spanning, I think, the globe. Cougar fans pop up in all parts of the country and the world. It's a real thing with BYU fans. But it begs the question, Nate, is BYU football, focusing solely on football here, are they the team that gets the most love in the state of Utah? What would be your initial thought? Like, as far as most passionate fans in most fans in the state of Utah?
I would say yes. I would say they are. And I would say that because I think BYU's always kind of had an uphill battle where people disrespect BYU. They don't have the same conference affiliation as, like, they went 12 years in the wilderness with independence. They didn't have that Pac-12 logo next to their name. And I think even through the 80s and 90s, like, they were always a disrespected team. I think it trended a little up in the early 80s with their success, but I think BYU fans have been through a lot. And I think even selection committees, we talk about this every single year when the March Madness tournament comes around, where, yeah, the selection committees always seem to go against BYU. So I think BYU fans are grizzled veterans when it comes to dealing with difficult situations. I think it makes them more passionate fans.
Well, I asked this because the Deseret News actually dove into the data. A new Deseret News Hinckley Institute of Politics poll found 56% of Utahns, including 2/3 of men, consider themselves avid or casual college football fans. And when you dive deeper into the numbers, the new Deseret News Hinckley Institute of Politics poll found that Utah is the most closely followed team in the state at 36% among Beehive State voters who identified themselves as college football fans, followed by BYU 29% and Utah State 13%. More Utah fans in the state of Utah, or is this just this poll just fake news?
I don't think it's fake news. I think there's a lot of BYU fans, but I also think that through BYU's 9 years of losing to Utah consecutively, so the nine game losing streak, I think that hurt. I think being independent, where during independence, we looked at it, and it never felt like BYU was playing for nothing. But now being a member of the Big 12 Conference and looking back at it, yeah, that BYU UMass game had nothing to it. That playing Wagner, there was no juice in that stadium in 2015. So
it was cool to see 70 points, but it was like there was a whole lot of nothing on the line there, folks.
Yeah, so I think BYU probably lost a few fans in that, but I think it's trending up right now for BYU.
I agree. It was funny too. Again, it's a really cool piece by the Deseret News. 36% Utah, 29% BYU, 13% Utah State. It goes even deeper. 3% Weber State, 3% Southern Utah, 3% Utah Tech. How about this one? 3% Snow College. That's you are a diehard fan of JUCO football, folks. 8% a college football team outside of Utah. I could see that.
That's almost as big as Utah State.
Yeah.
13% for Utah State, 8%
That's interesting.
for outside of Utah.
2% not sure. And then I think is where it kind of gets interesting to me is in this story is the differences in the BYU and Utah fan bases. And I think it highlights why these two fan bases, not necessarily the teams and the coaches, because I think now, especially with football, the coaching staffs get along really well. And I think they've taken on an approach where, yes, we want to win that game like crazy. Don't get it twisted. Like, we want that game badly. But when the game is over, we got a lot of love for Kalani. We got a lot of love for Morgan Scalley. I think that's where the coaching staff, they just look at it. And there's just so much crossover between the two that it's just like one big family. It really is with these two programs. But the fan bases, there's some differences within the Beehive State. Interesting data here. Gen Zers favor BYU over Utah 36% to 27%. Among baby boomers, BYU gets the nod at 32%, while Utah State comes in at 27% for baby boomers. Utah tumbles to third with 16%. Retired people favor the Cougars and Aggies over the Utes. The survey also shows that 56% of Gen Xers are Utah fans. That's the highest percentage among the age groups, while only 19% of Gen Xers cheer for BYU. Millennials, 40% go to Utah, 30% BYU. Does that surprise you at all? You're a millennial, correct?
Yeah.
I'm a millennial as well.
Yep.
I'm not surprised by that data, being a millennial myself.
No, not at all. And I mean, we both grew up on the west side in Salt Lake Valley. So I grew up in West Jordan. I believe you were West Valley.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so we both went to school, I imagine, with lots of Utah fans, and it felt like I was the only BYU fan in my school. So this does not surprise me the slightest bit.
No, I'm with you there. Like I thought I was just like this. I really thought there was no people that like college football other than me. Like, I thought I was the weirdo in the world where it's just like, does anyone like college football? Like, the Jazz are great, but
you know that meme of the kid who's sitting by himself and they have like the rest of the class on the opposite side of this picture? Sometimes I felt like that growing up.
I feel you.
Even the Utah fans who claim to be Utah fans, it didn't feel like they were actually invested in these games. Look, I'm going to throw my brother-in-law under the bus too. Here we go.
Oh, some family shade.
Well, when he started dating my sister, he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm a big Utah fan." And so one of the first times that we ever did anything together, we went bowling as a double date. And so it's my wife, me, my sister, and her husband, and now husband. And we're bowling on a Thursday night. And I'm like, this guy said he's a Utah fan. Utah's playing right now.
That always drives me crazy. Like, I always hate it. I love that you bring that up because I always hate it if I'm at, say, I don't know, somewhere out and about running an errand or a store or something, and say, like the NBA Finals. I remember I was traveling actually, and I was at some restaurant, and there was someone wearing Knicks stuff. I'm like, the Knicks are playing right now. This wasn't like some sports bar restaurant where TVs are galore. It's like, they're playing right now, but yet you're wearing Knicks stuff. They're playing in the the Eastern Conference Finals right now. Why are you not home watching it? Maybe we're just so extreme with our behaviors that
maybe
we just block off our schedules. My wife had to learn that too when I was dating her, when we approached this topic, because I was kind of like Jimmy Fallon with Fever Pitch, where it's like I kind of hid it for a while a little bit, but then I'm like, hey, by the way, I've got this secret hobby, or not the secret, but it's a pretty big part of my life. Oh, she's like, you like sports, huh? I'm like, You can say that. Yeah, my brothers, they watch the games. They scream at the TV. Yeah, it's a little bit different than that. It's a big part of my life, but anyway, we're happily married and loving life. But anyway, there's different layers to this, and I think what's also fun in this data from the Deseret News and the Hinckley Institute poll, the Deseret News notes religion was factored into this. 37% of individuals who identified themselves as Christian closely follow BYU, which, of course, sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Nearly a third follow Utah, while just 1 in 10 are Utah State fans. Almost half of those who self-identified in the survey as religious, non-Protestant Catholic root for BYU, compared to about 1/4 for Utah. More than 6 in 10 who identified as agnostic, nothing, follow Utah. So again, like it's the demographics of BYU and Utah. When I tell people that are not familiar with this rivalry, I hate the whole good versus bad angle that some BYU fans like to paint, and I think Utah does the same with BYU. But like, it's kind of public versus state. Like it's two different worlds and two different types of fan bases coming at it in these games. And, you know, it just makes for kind of a toxic rivalry. And then also politics were factored into this too. Self-identified Democrats are big on Utah, but not BYU. Republicans favor BYU, though the age gap over Utah is much smaller than it is with Democrats. 47% of Utahns in the poll who voted for Kamala Harris in 2024 are Utah fans compared to 20% BYU fans. Among those who marked a ballot for Donald Trump, 35% roll with BYU, 29% roll with Utah. What a guy! What a great fan base, I guess.
That's why this rivalry is so toxic, man.
Oh yeah,
people outside of the state just don't understand when. So I got excited, I think it was last week, when I saw the CFP official account basically say BYU Utah is a top 5 rivalry, because they had
that was cool.
Alabama Auburn in there. They had
I was fired up.
Yeah, they had Oklahoma Texas. They had BYU Utah, but they don't understand the juice there is between this, because you get religion involved, you get politics involved.
Oh yeah.
And it's every day of the year. I
will say one of the funny things, I remember being on the field in 2024 at Rice-Eccles Stadium. BYU wins that game, of course. Will Ferrin, we all know the story there. But I heard in the crowd, because again, I'm on field level, there was some Utah fan that was wearing a Trump hat, whatever. But because that was on the heels of the election that night. But he's basically said, "So glad Biden's out of office because we've been winless against BYU in the Biden era." And now, I guess the Trump era, it's still been kind of good. The Trump era first term was better for Utah during the Trump time, but second go around, it's been all BYU so far. We'll see how it goes this year. But I thought that study from the Deseret News was really interesting because, again, it highlights just the differences between these fan bases. Age gap, political, religion. They just clash, man. It's blue versus red, and that's how it's always going to be. They're never going to get along, the BYU fans and the Utah fans, but should make for a great game coming up once again this fall. Let's close out the show next here on Cougar Sports Saturday. Cougar Sports Saturday here on KSL News Radio. Final segment of the program. Mitch Harper and Nate Slack with you. If you missed any part of the program, feel free, please, subscribe to the show. Wherever you get your podcast, leave a rating and a review. It'd be greatly appreciated if you do that. You can also get it on the KSL Sports app, KSL app as well. So many different places to get the Cougar Sports Saturday podcast. Week 2 of BYU football fall camp is a wrap, Nate, as they had scrimmage today, 102 plays. Kalani Sitake said that the offense got a slight edge over the defense as we put a bow on the show. Do you like the fact that the offense maybe a little ahead of the defense maybe at this juncture?
Yeah, I love it. I think that's what needed to happen. And I look, I said it earlier, I don't have any concerns about the defense. And I think some of the guys are still kind of coming along. It sounds like there were some injuries, not really today, but there's been injuries on the offensive line, so they're still trying to find their groove. But if they're able to hold their own, kind of a little shorthanded against the BYU defensive line, I really like that. I'm really excited to see what this offense can do because I still feel like they're being slept on a bit. And maybe I am too, but I want to see it for myself. And that's part of the reason I'm not a huge fan of Game 1 against Utah Tech because FCS games, they just don't do a whole lot for me. I understand you can take a lot from them because 2023 BYU plays Sam Houston. It wasn't an FCS team because they're making the transition, but
pretty much was.
They basically were. And then BYU wins that one 14-0. You go back to 2017, BYU's playing Portland State in Week 1. They dropped a negative. I think they won that one 20-6, and that was also an awful year. And so the last 2 seasons, BYU obliterated the FCS opponent to start out the season. I think that's going to be the same thing this year, so you can draw that from it. But I want to see what these receivers can do going up against a good secondary, and I'm happy we get to see that in Week 2 against Arizona because I feel like that's going to be a fantastic game. That's going to be maybe one of the best games of the week in the entire country. But I'm excited to hear that things are going well for the offense because it seems like all we've talked about the last 9 months or 7 months has just been they're going to be shorthanded. How are they going to be able to do in the passing game? Yes, Bear's going to be a year older. Yes, they return LJ Martin. Yes, they have a couple tight ends coming in, but they still have nobody at the receiver position. I think today maybe starts to change that expectation because a guy that we haven't even really talked about lately is Reggie Frischnecht, and if he's having 2 touchdown catches from Bear Bachmeier, that's another added weapon that we just haven't really talked about recently.
Speaking of Reggie Frischnecht, we had him on the show earlier today, and fresh off the ex-Twitter machine press, Trayson Bourget just gave his fall camp scrimmage standouts. It's like he knew that we were about to go off the air here shortly. Bourget, offense, he gives the nod to Reggie Frischnecht, who, as Trayson puts it, caps off a huge week for him, came down with a couple touchdowns, and proves to be a playmaker. On the defensive side, how about this? Miles Hall, a guy who gives his all every play, physical, instinctive, and finds his way to the ball. Miles Hall, he's a good player. I think back to 2024 when it was that Kansas game. Remember, that was the dark night in BYU football history. That's an underrated game this year that I think every Cougar fan should circle as Kansas just for the revenge of 2024. But Miles Hall was getting first-team snaps in that game. I think Harrison Taggart at the time was banged up. Miles Hall played. He's probably in that second, third unit with the linebackers. Again, a couple years ago, you would have said in this program before the Big 12 era, you would have said a guy like Miles Hall, veteran in the program, been around the block a bit, he'd probably be a starter. And again, it's little things like that where someone like a Miles Hall, who's getting praise from his teammate for his play today in the scrimmage, like if called upon into duty, I think they feel good that he can provide an impact in that linebacker unit this season for the defense.
Yeah, I think Miles Hall, Ace Kafusi, and Jake Clifton would probably be starting linebackers on most BYU teams.
Yeah.
But not this team. I mean, Kedu Luave, you have Cialia Serra, you have Isaiah Glasker. I mean, those are 3 stud linebackers, and it's probably the best unit on the team, I imagine, right? Top to bottom?
Yes, no question. It is, and I thought it was noteworthy today. I asked Uluwave who's going to have the green dot, the communication. It's going to go to the safeties. So I thought that was kind of interesting because last year we saw Jack Kelly have that. I kind of assumed maybe Uluwave would have that green dot, but it's going to go to the safeties. Hey, great show today. Nate, good stuff. Cougar Nation, we will talk to you next time here on Cougar Sports Saturday on KSL News Radio.